Hi guys, let's do some science. So we are talking about soil layers and properties of soil. Hopefully you got out and checked out what you have around your house. Now that I'm looking, I notice there's lots of different kinds of soil right here in my front yard and around my neighborhood. So once you start looking, you notice things, right? We're good observers. Today we're going to sort of discuss what's the difference between weathering and erosion in your Google form, because they are really similar, but there's a main difference. And you're going to see a cool soil erosion demonstration and answer some questions on that. But before we do that, I'm going to read to you a little bit about soil. And as far as the weathering and erosion go, the main difference is with the weathering, it's the breaking down of rock into smaller bits and the making of soil. So if you think of the weathering as the breaking down and the making of soil, whereas erosion has nothing to do really with the making of soil. I mean, the rubbing of the soil against each other may cause some weathering in the process, but the main difference is with erosion, it's the movement of soil. So water or wind moving the soil is erosion, whereas the weathering is wind and water breaking down rocks into soil. Okay, so you'll learn a little bit more about that today in your Google form, and you're going to answer questions. So when you're watching the video, watch for examples of weathering, examples of erosion, because I'm going to ask you to write about that afterwards. So, but for now, we learned a lot about natural resources while we were doing our region studies. We discussed the natural resources for each of our regions in social studies. But in science, we're just going to focus in a little bit of the natural resource of soil. So soil, a natural resource, we know, is something from earth that people need or use. Soil has nutrients that all living things need. Plants take in water and nutrients from the soil through their roots. Animals get the nutrients that they need by eating plants. We also get nutrients by eating animals that eat plants. So it sort of ties into our food web idea. It all comes from soil. Without it, what do we have? We have nothing to eat, really. People use soil to grow plants for food, clothing, paper, and lumber. Some soils are used in bricks, pottery, and glass. So think about what that covers. Our houses, what we wear, what we eat, pretty much everything. Soil can be lost in different ways. When farmers plow, soil is loosened. After farmers harvest their crops, the soil is bare. Wind and water erode the soil that is loose or bare, and once the soil is lost, the land cannot be used to grow food. So this is actually a really big problem, and farmers spend a lot of time thinking about how they can avoid this. In our past, in our country, we've had great difficulty with over-farming land, and then big dust storms coming through, and then you can't grow anything. The soil is damaged. You can fix it over a long period of time, but in the meantime, people can't grow anything to eat. So we think very hard about the engineering of planting and how to do it safely for the environment and for the soil to stay nutrient and able to grow things. So when people dig to make roads and buildings, soil is loosened. Cutting trees for wood makes the land bare. Mining also can leave land bare. New soil takes hundreds of years to form. That is why people must save or conserve soil. Same way we were discussing with conserving water. Okay? One way to conserve soil is to slow down erosion. Farmers can plow across a hill instead of up and down. This is called contour plowing. So contour, like a rounded shape. Instead of going straight, contours help slow down the flow of water. Okay. Let's see. When it rains, rows of plants catch and hold water. And you're going to see that in your video today. The water soaks into the soil instead of carrying the soil downhill, so it stays in place. Farmers also can plant two different crops in the same field. This is called strip cropping. The two crops are planted side by side in strips. The crops are picked at different times. This way, the soil is never bare. The plant roots help hold the soil in place. Less soil erodes. So this is a really smart idea. And I don't know how many of you have a vegetable garden at home, but if you do, you would know that not all the vegetables bloom at the same time. There's certain times of the year where you harvest certain vegetables. And it's amazing how nature works, where you can time it so that it looks like this from above, where you never have bare soil. You can have you can be harvesting, I'm trying to think of something early, strawberries have an early season, so you could have strawberries, and then you could have a later crop, which would be corn. I'm not sure if that's one they would put together, but that's just an example. I'm not a great farmer. Okay, and then one other thing we are going to get into, I hope next week, composting and worms. I'd like to discuss worms with you. But for now, I think that's it from me on soil and conservation of soil and how important it is. We take dirt for granted. We think dirt is nothing, but really dirt is a source of life for us, and we really do need to think about how we can help conserve it by planting along coastlines. The roots of the plants we plant help keep the soil and sand in place where we need it. It acts as a barrier for people from floodwaters. It's so important. My parents live at the beach, and they take great money and time planting seagrass along the dunes to act as a barrier to floodwaters. So as those waves come up, they hit the plants, and instead of running right through the soil and sand, they are slowed down by the plant roots, and the sand and soil stay in place and protect everyone's property. So it's very important, not just for our resources, but for our safety of our homes. All right, so that's it for today from me. Complete your Google form, and then you have some Spelling City work to do on your terms. I added some terms that we learned about today. Okay, see you guys next time.